Hi, everybody. My name is Angelo Reyes, and I am a group member of the group that's examining the phrase "make this country great again." So first, I'd just like to kind of start off with let me move this over here, with kind of the history behind the phrase. Make this country great again. So let's kind of start with that. The phrase first gained popularity in 1979 when the American economy was at an all time low due to high unemployment and high inflation. So obviously, kind of in times of or troubled times, I should say, um, you know, phrases that kind of had a positive inflection towards them and kind of push people in a positive direction were obviously taken very well by the people. It was inspiring and, just kind of gave them some kind of hope, which is why President Ronald Reagan, made use of the phrase in his 1980 presidential election to positive results. Now we can kind of move on to contemporary usage of the phrase. It's been tweaked a little bit just by a few words. So instead of "make this country great again," we can examine the phrase "make America great again," which I think we're all probably extremely familiar with because of its popularity in the Donald Trump presidential campaign, which I'll touch on right now. It's recently gained a lot of popularity by Trump, who seemingly trademarked it in his presidential campaign. He has a running platform that claims he could make America great again by doing things such as building a wall to kind of keep out illegal immigrants, again, kind of cracking down on immigration overall, and just kind of taking, in my opinion, just radical approaches to other, areas of the political spectrum. The phrase is also extremely loaded, in my opinion. It suggests that America ceased to be great, no doubt, on his opinion, in Obama's term of office. And I don't know. I just feel like the phrase "great" is so subjective. I mean, to some people, America was great in one decade, and then to other people, it wasn't great in that same decade. I mean, it just kind of I don't feel like a very uh, fair or good, kind of tactic to kind of take, especially, I don't know, when you're trying to win a presidential race. So we can kind of look at the effect that it's had on the American people, which, ironically enough, it's had a good effect, especially for his to gain supporters and for his supporters. It's seemed to rally the Trump supporters and giving them a shared vision of the future, which is that they see a future where Trump will put an end to all that's infuriated them about the past. Again, things like immigration, it's definitely kind of like a hot button issue for them. And overall, we can see that the phrase has powerful usage just by watching how he uses it and how he kind of rallies support and followers. Um, However, the supporters of the phrase might not have the best intentions, which is something that my other roommates are going to kind of touch on. But thank you for letting me deliver my aspect of the presentation. To just kind of reiterate, we saw the rise of the phrase in about 1979, 1980, when unemployment was high, inflation was really high, and we saw that in Ronald Reagan's, again, his presidential campaign. Then Trump kind of more recently has taken that over and kind of used it for similar intentions. Although the time period is not really the same. I mean, yes, we have high unemployment, but not like we did in 1979. And when that phrase was really used by Reagan, he's using it for in different ways and for different reasons. Again, immigration is definitely kind of a big one, and it's definitely worked so far. We see a lot of supporters. We'll see the hats "Make America Great Again." That's a really popular thing. However, it's definitely a loaded term, and it's got a lot of weight behind it that we can definitely examine and look at intellectually and critically and analytically. And that's what my kind of group mates are going to do a little bit more. So thank you for letting me deliver this backstory to you guys. I really appreciate your time.
The phrase "inequality." Many of the people who are supporting the phrase "make America great again" are old white men that are hoping to bring America to a more romantic time, such as the 1950s, the 1960s, where they would have a higher up on the minorities and the women. Because as you can recall in the history books, it's not the most equal time. It's a very racist, homophobic, misogynistic time that we're still trying to get rid of ourselves in 2016. Donald Trump is running a platform based on negative things about America or things that his base, his Republican base, would think is negative about America, which would include Muslims coming to America to practice their religious freedoms, Mexicans who are coming in legally or illegally, and our dependence on the Chinese production quality. Those three things are used as scapegoats for why certain people can't get jobs as easy as they used to, regardless of other economic factors such as Wall Street or just overall job growth. As equality among women and minorities increases in America, old advantages for white men are decreasing. You know, the white privilege is kind of not being as big of a privilege as it used to be. Like I said before, it's not as easy to get a job as it used to be. And you can also equate that with people having more college degrees, so the job field is cluttered. Also, you can see that Make America Great Again has a great following by white supremacists because it's even been endorsed by the KKK leader, David Duke, which you can make your own assumption about that.
Is Make America Great Again actually comes from the term American exceptionalism. And American exceptionalism is the belief that America is inherently different and in some cases better than other nations because of our democratic ideals and personal liberties. Now, some aspects of the term can be traced back to its Puritan roots, where the Puritans believed that we were supposed to be the example set by God to be essentially, sitting on the hill. But the idea of the democratic ideals and personal liberty has clear roots of both Greek and Roman governance. Like I said, the Puritans and some Americans today still believe that, God made a pact with the American people, choosing them to be a model for other nations, where clearly that's not necessarily the case anymore. And the ironic twist behind the phrase today is that Donald Trump is using it to rally the people in a much angrier manner than is really necessary. He wishes to decrease government control and increase military might, which require tax money and a strong government to implement it, so there's a contradiction there. He wishes to put the competitiveness back into primary school curriculums, so essentially getting rid of No Child Left Behind, which can work to a degree. As a child, I grew up with that policy being in the essentially being in production by the time I was in high school. It wasn't something that I could really be affected by anymore because I was already going through the school system. But when I was in high school, it was implemented, and it essentially allowed for, a lot of the lazier students to still get a passing grade despite the fact that they obviously didn't care. And it also allowed for teachers to also not really care too much about the education of the students. And putting the competitiveness back into primary school curriculums can work to get us better SAT scores, but it really doesn't help educate the children. It just allows for them to become sponges only to regurgitate the information back later. So there's a give and take with that particular policy that he has. He also wishes to increase drilling and fracking, which, as we have learned from many tree huggers, is a big no-no. And he also wishes to increase the security along the border, obviously that being one of his, huge trademarks of his campaign, despite the fact that a lot of Mexican immigrants, whether illegal or not, actually play a huge role in our economy. The twist being that Trump's ideals actually resemble a lot of the Reaganomic policies implemented back in the 1980s to reduce the growth of government spending, reduce the federal income tax and capital gains tax, reduce government regulation, and tighten money supply in order to reduce inflation. A lot of baby boomers would tell you, wow, that was such a great idea. And given back then it was. However, now that we're actually dealing with the consequences of it now, none of those ideals really worked. And Donald Trump is using the Make America Great Again slogan in order to re-implement a lot of those Reaganomic ideals, when any person currently going through college, not able to really graduate without some form of debt, therefore can't really contribute to the middle class, which is what you need in order to get a successful capitalist-based economy, they'll tell you that that's not going to work. So there's the ironic twist behind that.
So first of all, many Republican presidential candidates, including Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio, have vowed to make America great again, suggesting that there are issues with today's more progressive America, where you're going to see more equality for women and more opportunities for minorities. But they're also suggesting that that America has ever been great, which is certainly up for debate. One thing is clear for Republicans: as women and minorities receive more equality and opportunities, this is apparently hurting the white male Republicans in their eyes. The thoughts of equality, whether it be gender, racial, or religious, it's troublesome for Republicans because they believe it's infringing on their rights. America has always been trademarked as the land of opportunity. But the harsh reality is that many groups of people are denied basic rights. The phrase "Make America Great Again," in reality, it means make America great again for white men. So now I want to talk about how these Republicans intend to make it great again. First of all, they want to make abortion illegal and defund / press criminal charges on Planned Parenthood. They don't believe that gays should have any marriage rights. Even after all that's happened, they believe homosexuality is a choice. They believe in tradition between a man and a woman. They support the death penalty and are actually open to methods of execution, which might sound kind of insane. And again, after all the studies there's been, all of that, after everything that's been proven, they're not convinced on climate change after all these years. In reality, they care more about saving money than protecting our world for future generations. When purchasing a firearm, they're against background checks. They believe that 99.99% of Americans should be able to purchase a firearm, which is a bit insane, to be honest. There should obviously be background checks. Not everybody should have that sort of right to buy a firearm because you never know what's going to happen. They believe that building a wall surrounding Mexico is not only moral, but will actually solve anything. And they think Mexico is going to pay for it, which is it's insane. All of the above does not equal a great America. The main point I'm trying to drive is that at no point in our history has America ever been great for women or minorities. Sure, there has been times where it's been great for white males, but to say that you're going to make America great again when it's never been great, it's just not going to happen. So that's why people need to educate themselves and get out and vote. Thank you for listening.